In our previous video, we actually defined a schema and then created a model in our MongoDB database. But in this lecture, we're actually going to be creating a record and then inserting the record into our MongoDB database. In this lecture, we'll be writing some tests to make sure we can insert records into our database. So we are going to create a file and we're going to call it inside the tests folder, we're going to call it create_test.js. So in this file, we are going to basically be writing some tests with mocha. So to do this, we start with a describe function. And inside the describe function, we are going to have a variety of it functions. Inside each it function, we put in code to test a very specific part of the code we have in the user model. So both the describe function and it function are provided by mocha. So don't worry where these functions come from. Let's go ahead to write our describe and it function. So it goes this way: describe, right? And it takes on 2 arguments, and the first one is a string, right? The string is just basically describing what we are testing. So we are testing creating of a new record, right? And then the second argument is a function. So here I'm going to use a fat arrow function. So it goes this way, right? So inside this function now, inside this fat arrow function, this is where the it blocks lives. So the it block takes similar arguments as the describe block, a string. So I'm just going to define just one it block. We're just going to say save a user, right? And I'm also going to use another fat arrow function. So now that we have our describe block and our it block, inside every it block, we need to make an assertion. So this simply means it's just basically a piece of code where we can say something like, I really hope that this value is equal to this value. The idea is just to make a comparison. But one thing to note is that mocha gives us global access to the describe and the it block functions, but not assert. So to use assert, you have to require assert. So to do that, we're just going to do this. So const assert is equal to, and we can now use our assert inside our it block. So we're just going to be writing a very simple assertion, and it goes this way. So let's say 1 plus 1 is equals 2. We all know that this is right. So, and now we can run our test. So to run our test, we can use the command npm run tests. So this would fail. I actually knew it would fail, but I just needed you to get this point. So we notice that this command now, this is normally what we would use for running our test, but we haven't set it up. So to set it up, we are going to go to our package.json, and in this test script now, you notice that it's not specified. So since we are using mocha for testing, what we simply do is to just remove all this inside this quotes and just write mocha. Now that we have our test script set up, we can go back to our terminal, and this is what we are working with, and we can just run our command again, right? And you can see everything is working and our test pass. So just to make sure everything really works, so I can say 1 plus 1 is equal to 4. We all know that this is wrong, so and we expect our test to fail. So I'm going to rerun my test command, and you can see it's actually failing. So let's take it back and then run it again, and just to make sure, right? And it works now. So now that we understand how testing works with mocha, let's create a test around creating a user, because that's the actual goal of this video. So I'm going to remove this as sats. We're going to need it later, but for now we're going to remove it. Then we are going to, since we want to create a user, we are going to do something. We are going to require our user model. And remember, prior we already created a user model and we exported it. So now is the time that we need to use this, our user model that we exported. So to do that, we can just go simply back to our create underscore test, and we're going to require our user, and it just goes this way to const user is equal to require, right? And we're not just going to say require user here, it won't work. We have to really get into the folder that our user is. We're going to really write out the path as it is. So now we are inside our test folder. So and our model was exported in this SRC folder. So we have to like go out of this test folder and into our SRC folder. And how you do that is you use dot slash. So this first dot slash actually gets us out of our test folder. Then we will now get into SRC folder and we just write SRC slash user. So this is okay, but you can still have it as user.js, but this is actually okay. So now that you've done that, you are going to go ahead to create an instance of our model that we just required, right? So I remember something about that I said in the previous video. Instances of a model is what we use to create a record, right? So now let's go further and just say const Mary is equal to new user, right? And inside this, we are going to give values to the properties that we specified in our schema. So remember that the schema is actually what tells our model the property that it should adopt, the property that our record should have. So in our case now, we just have the name property. Let me say we have like the age, the class, all of those properties. Whenever we want to create a record using a particular model, we'll make sure that we give a value to all the properties that were specified in the schema, right? So in our case, it's just the name. So in here, we're just going to have an object, and inside our object, we're just going to write name. And since it's a string, we'll do well to also have that in a string. And I'm just going to say Mary, right? So this, we've actually created an instance of our model. So, but this is not enough. This is not enough to save the user into our database. So to do that, we're just going to, it's just a very simple line. It's just going to be like Mary.save. So let's try it out. Just npm run test. Yeah, now everything works fine. So we are going to be using our MongoDB compass to make sure Joe is actually saved to the database. If you don't have MongoDB compass, I have a video on how to install that, and the link to that will be on this video and also in the description. So do well to check out the video. So I'm going to launch my MongoDB compass, and this is my, since I'm working with my local MongoDB instance, so I'm just going to be using this. So I'm going to do save and connect. I'm just going to call it localhost, then save and connect. So this is it. So you can see our user test here. So notice that we didn't have to do any special thing. We didn't have to come here to create a database. When you connect to your database, you actually automatically create a database. So MongoDB creates a database. Once it looks for that database and it can't find it, it will create one for you. The same thing with this our user collection. This is a point where the user collection was created for us while we wanted to create this user model. So this is it. This is Mary. This is the Mary that we just created. So, but there is one thing I want to check out before wrapping this lecture, and we're going to run our file again. So when we run this again, everything passes. So I'm going to refresh my MongoDB compass using Command R. So you can see that this other user was created. So we can notice that we have two Mary here. So the question is this a bad thing in a testing environment? So in our next section, we'll find out if it is and how to manage this if it's a problem. So think about it, and I'll see you on the next video.